Hi, everybody. Welcome to the 100 Pounders meeting of Overeaters Anonymous. Today is the 29th of May, 2024. And today I'm absolutely delighted to introduce Donna G. Donna started away in 2018 and she's from Pennsylvania. So I'm now going to hand it over to Donna to share her experience, strength, and hope. Take it away. And just as a reminder, this is only the speaker that's recorded.
Thanks, Rita. Thank you so much for your service and everybody doing service. And hello, my fellows. So glad to be here. I'm Donna G. I'm a grateful, recovered, compulsive overeater. Thanks for the waves. I feel like I'm at home. I'm a grateful, recovered, compulsive overeater only by God's grace and mercy. And I'd like to open and close with quotes from my favorite literature in 12 Step, which is the AA Big Book. I am a lover of the Big Book. And the first quote can be found on page 124. And it reads, "Cling to the thought that in God's hands, the dark past is the greatest possession you have, the key to life and happiness for others." And so what can I say about my dark past? I know when we share our story, we're supposed to start with what it was like, right? I thought my life was horrible as far back as I can remember. I was born the fifth child of 8 children to my parents, who had a marriage that lasted for nearly 60 years when my dad passed away. So they were married a very long time. Even now, I wouldn't say I had a happy childhood, but I do remember, and I am grateful for the happy times that I really did not appreciate when I was in that part of my life, in my childhood. I really thought my life was horrible. We lived in a small house, all of us, and I felt this made life horrible. Recently, that house went up for sale. And I was so glad that I was able to look and check it against my reality, because I never knew exactly how big it was. And the house was 1,200 square feet. And that was for 10 people, right? So it was very, very crammed, right? I was molested when I was a child, and I felt this made my life horrible. I also felt not being able to share that with anyone made my life horrible, because the person who did this was a family member who everybody loved and felt and put on a pedestal, really. So I thought I couldn't share it. Everything at home felt like it was either loud and chaotic or silent and depressing. When I look back, it felt like it was those two extremes. There were lots of unspoken secrets. I felt like the unspoken rule was that we kind of like were to walk around with tape over our mouths. Like that's what it felt like, just that we were supposed to walk around and not share anything. But I had a big problem, and that was that I couldn't stay quiet about most things. I was able to stay quiet about my biggest secret, but I had this little rebel. I'm now in ACA, and I'm learning a lot about that little inner teenager. But I had this little rebel and this little person inside of me that just wanted to speak, and wanted to not just speak, shout, yell. I was restless, irritable, and discontented most of the time when I look back. I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel I could get comfortable or rely on anyone or anything except food. It just was this constant irritability. I was always looking for a sense of ease, comfort, and safety. That was my biggest goal in life when I was a kid. The target of most of my resentments was my mother. My mother was my number one on my 4th step. I've come to understand with time and with recovery, and just with so many things, that I probably looked for the safest person who loved me the most. I didn't see it that way. I thought she hated me. I truly believed that my mother hated me. And I said very, very freely, let her know how much I hated her. I would say it, I hate you. And some of my early food memories are that we, I don't want to get into a lot of details with this because I don't want to trigger anyone, but I just remember that we didn't have a lot of snacks in the house. So there was a lot of having to sneak. There wasn't a lot of like extra food. So I would, sneak. I would sneak sweets when we were out somewhere where they would have them. I remember one aunt who always had, candy dishes and things like that. I mean, I would sneak, think I was sneaking. I mean, I'm sure people saw me, but, always sneaking. And before I earned my own money, I would steal from the local store. I would actually be bold enough to steal, sweets. And in high school, when I got a job, I bought food with my money from work. I remember my sister also was just a year younger than me. And I remember when she began working, she would buy clothes, but I would buy food. And I thought that was, kind of interesting. And I was always jealous because she had all these nice clothes, but like I was buying food with mine. And I would eat all this stuff after school. And then at dinner, I wouldn't want to eat what my mother had cooked. But I would manage to eat just anything that was sort of carby, right? Like pasta or potatoes. I would eat those, but I wouldn't eat anything else. My weight really took off when I was in a car accident as a senior in high school. And then as a freshman in college, it took off as well. So it kind of started to really to head up. And I really never had all the food choices or the unlimited amounts that they had at college. So I was like, I went really crazy there. I had homesickness. I was 8 hours away from home. I wanted to go as far as I could possibly, get. I went an 8 hour drive from home. So I was really homesick. And I really numbed out my feelings of homesickness that year through food. And when I came home at Christmas, my grandmother, who was not the most polite at times, looked at me. And the first thing she said, even before hello, was, "Boy, you got fat." And yeah, I had gained, we say the freshman 15 a lot of times here. I had gained probably at least, I don't know, 40, 50 pounds. Very quickly, I took off. And in my adult life, young adult life after that, I always seemed to yo-yo with my weight. I would, try to go on diets, whatever. And it wasn't even the dieting so much. It almost seemed like where I was at emotionally would determine whether, but I did try to diet. And this is one of the 3 times in my life when I was in college when my weight really skyrocketed. The other 2 times was when I was first married and I had my first child. And then the third one would be when years later when I was being bullied by a coworker at work. And the thing that was, common about all these 3 times when I looked at those is that there are times in my life where I felt trapped in decisions that I had made or just trapped in situations, overwhelmed when I just felt like it was way too much for me to handle, and very unhappy. Keyword very, because like I said, I think I kind of felt unhappy most of my life. So through my adulthood, I worked in the addiction field. So I was aware of the 12 steps. I was very aware of what they were. I had no idea that the 12 steps meant it was a design for living. They're steps that you actually take. I think that's funny when I look back on that. I mean, I knew what the idea was, that there were, that these were, steps for people who, have addictions, but I didn't understand they're things you actually do. You actually take these steps. And I also had no idea what changes were promised as a result of taking the steps on a daily basis. And had no idea until I got into the rooms how completely different a person's life could be and could change as a result. So I went to a meeting only once, an OA meeting when I was in my late 20s, before I got in this time in 2018. So I only went once. I didn't understand the format. I didn't get, especially the whole idea of no crosstalk. I didn't know why these unkind people were not responding to the people who were talking. I didn't get that. And it felt very strange to me. So I didn't go back until 2018. And there were certain things inside of me over all those years. I'm going through my adult years that seem like a blur to a lot of extent, but there were certain things that took deep root in me over this time, and very deep root. And here's what was going on inside. I had 1,000 forms of fear, not just 100. I had 1,000. I had thousands forms of fears. And my biggest fear was economic insecurity. And I loved when I found out about that was a part of one of the promises, that it will leave us. But for me, I always say it was not just economic insecurity, it was economic terror. I had such a fear that I don't know why. I'm not really sure that I was going to be out on the street. Like I just was going to be homeless. Like I had a horrible fear of that. I had fears that I wasn't good enough. I believed that I didn't deserve good in my life. I was full of anger, resentment, bitterness. I had a cold heart. And then when things would happen, like my divorce, or things would happen like my family letting me down, it would just, in my mind, reinforce that, yeah, all these things are true, and these are why you feel the way you feel. And this just went on and on. I figured it was, I had no gratitude too. That's the other thing. I could not see that there was anything to be grateful for. Like I didn't have anything that I wanted, so why should I be grateful? And other people had what I wanted. My answer was to give up. My answer was to give up. And I really believe that that's sort of what I did, was just give up. Especially, I gave up on caring about my weight and on relying on anyone else in my life for anything. I just decided I will be the person who takes care of me, because nobody else will. I don't know if you're familiar with the song. I think it's Simon and Garfunkel, I Am a Rock, I Am an Island. That was my theme song, and I loved it. And I was proud. I would tell people, this is my theme song. Like that's how I felt. And yeah, my answer was to just give up. I figured it was really stupid to even bother with trying to keep doing stuff, and making effort toward losing weight, because it wouldn't last. And in reality, now that I just said that, in reality, I was on to a truth that nothing I could do would make a difference, right? But I at that time that wasn't how I was thinking. I was just thinking, you know what, who cares? Just give up. I was very disappointed, in my choice of men. 2 men who I have had children by, who disappointed me quite a bit. And so I thought, my choices are horrible when it comes to men. So who cares what I look like? I don't need to look good to have a man in my life, because I don't care about men. So I just, I gave up. And I thought, well, at least if I give up on this too, I'll be able to have my food freely, and that will give me comfort. And that's what I was looking for, comfort. So I worked several jobs because of the economic insecurity. That is one thing I managed to do. I put all my energy toward doing the best I could to support my kids, because I was, especially my 2 daughters, supporting them completely alone. But I worked several jobs, and in my primary job, I was an under earner. I've learned a lot about that too. I just, my lack of self-esteem and what I thought my worth was, I never quite made a salary that I was, worth. And so I had to keep working more and more jobs. And here's what was going on the outside. And Rita's going to pull up a picture. So what was going on the outside was that I just, as all these character traits of mine were going on, and all these negative thought processes, and all this comforting with food, the weight just kept coming on, of course. So I think there's probably a picture at my highest weight, which was about just under 260 pounds. And I have a picture. It's not in this one, the ones that she's going to pull up, but I have a picture where I'm leaning, and I'm leaning on my daughter. And I don't think this is one of them. Although you will notice that in most of the pictures, you can see I don't have the other person in there. You can see that I am leaning. I leaned a lot. I leaned on people. When I was sitting, I would really lean. And the reason is, honestly, because it was hard to stand up straight. It was really hard to stand up straight. And I never really connected that. Why was I always leaning? Like if I was sitting, I was literally on somebody's shoulder in a picture, because it was just really hard. I hated discomfort, and it was uncomfortable to stand up straight. In July of 2014, my father passed away. And my father was my rock. My father, especially after my divorce, was someone who I really depended on. I feel he, and to this day, feel he is the only man who ever really loved me unconditionally. And I just was full of so much grief. And I don't know exactly, I can't really explain, no matter how much I try to put it into words, what happened, but I began a journey then that led me, it took 4 years, but it was a spiritual journey, and it led me to the rooms. And it's hard to explain. I started this spiritual journey. I do believe my dad was behind it. That's why I guess it's hard to explain. It felt kind of miraculous. He told me when he was dying, and he could hardly talk, and he had dementia. I let him know. I said, Dad, you are my hero. And I said, I want you to know that. And I wanted him to know before he died. And I said, you're the only man who ever loved me unconditionally. And I'm so grateful. My father had dementia. He could hardly talk. He had Parkinson's. He could hardly speak. But he mustered up a response to me. And what he said was, I'm really sorry about that, Donna, because you really deserve it. You deserve to be loved unconditionally. And I share that with you because I think that was the most healing thing that anybody ever said to me in my life. And it started me to begin this journey toward seeing myself as God sees me, and seeing myself with love. And I didn't know how to begin, but I did. I had never paid money because, again, I gave up. I had never paid money for any of the pay and weigh, never paid money for any gyms, anything like that. It's like, I'm not going to put money into this because I had given up. But I did, in 2016, join a pay and weigh program. I lost about 65 pounds. I thought, oh, this is it. This is the answer. And then about 2 years in, about 2016 to 18, at that point, 2 years in, I hit a brick wall. And what I could do for 2 years, I couldn't do for 2 minutes. I just could not stop binging. And I couldn't understand it. I thought, what is going on here? I couldn't do it. And I started to put the weight back on. I put on about 9 pounds, and I began to panic. Because one thing I need to share is that I was diagnosed with diabetes. I don't know, somewhere maybe around 2010, I think, 12, somewhere in there. And the effects of all this binging was so scary to me that I thought I was going to die. I really thought I was going to die. And that fear of dying is what kind of drove me into the pay and weigh program. I don't believe I ever would have done it had I not been so fearful of dying. And so, yeah, when the 9 pounds started to come back on, I went into panic mode. Again, I didn't care so much about the weight. It was more of, oh my gosh, I know what was happening back then and how I felt every night when I went to bed, that I wouldn't wake up in the morning. I really believed that I'm not going to wake up. So I thought I have to do something. And Thanksgiving 2018, is when it really, really was a very sad, sad time in my life. What happened was I have 3 children. My son is by a different father than my daughters. His father always had every other holiday had him. So it just happened to be in 2018, his year, to have that holiday, Thanksgiving. My daughter went to Ireland. My middle daughter went to Ireland to study with school, and she was there during Thanksgiving. And my oldest daughter, who lives on the other side of the state, thought this is the great year for me to go see my fiance's family for Thanksgiving because my siblings won't be there. Never thinking, well, what about me, right? What about mom? So she went there. And so I was without all 3 of my children. Now, my brother invited me over. He had done that every year since my dad died, but he invited me over. And so I was among family, but I didn't have my kids there. And I proceeded to binge without care at all. And again, with this 9 pounds already had come back on every, I ate so much that I was hung over completely on Friday, the Friday after, all day long. I don't even remember that day. And I don't remember what happened that day, except on Saturday morning, I found myself, and I don't know how it happened, or I don't remember, but I found myself sitting in the rooms of OA. I sat in my first in-person meeting. And since I was 20, I remember I went to one meeting before that, 20 something. And I sat in the room, and it was a speakers meeting. And I've always loved speakers meetings since, because the woman who was speaking, I just wanted to weep. She had a father who she was very close to. I could identify with that. I identified with a lot of her story. She missed her dad terribly. So did I. And afterwards, she climbed. I always joke with her and say, you were climbing over the table. It was like you weren't going to let me leave without getting. Somebody made these little business cards with all the information about a vision for you on them, and just to be able to give to people. And she kept saying, well, this is a meeting on the go, and I want you to have it in case you decide not to come back. And I said, I'm coming back. I'm good. I knew it. I knew in my heart I was in. As soon as I heard welcome home, I knew I was in. This was where I belonged, and I was not going anywhere else. I was going to be here I was here. I was in. And she kept saying, I know, but I just want you to have it. And when I looked at the card, what I noticed right away was that the time of the meeting was exactly the 1 hour, that I had my commute that I hated so much to work every morning. And I thought, oh my gosh, this will make the commute more bearable. I'm going to listen to this meeting. And like I said, I knew about 12 steps, and I knew about recovery from the work that I had done as a, I'm trained as a counselor. I don't do counseling now, but I knew a lot about it. And I had always heard 90 meetings in 90 days. And I thought, well, I can count these as meetings. I'll just go on them. I'll have my Saturday meeting, and I'll figure something out for Sunday, and I'll try to do 90 meetings in 90 days. And I didn't do quite 90. I think I probably did about 87, 88, something like that. But I did, meetings between a vision, my in-person meeting, and other meetings. I did that. I managed to do that. And I think it really made a difference. And when people ask me, what do you do when you're first getting started and you haven't, you don't have the neutrality yet, or you don't have the habit yet, what do you do? I always say, just, you got to throw yourself into this program. And that's what I did. I really threw myself into this program. I mean, I had 2 children still at home. Granted, they were older, but I honestly look back then and say, oh my gosh, I think I may have neglected them a bit, because I just listened to meetings. I listened to leads, and I loved leads. I have a sister who's in AA, and I loved leads from people in AA, and I would listen to AA leads, and I would go on meetings with her, and I would go to in-person meetings with her. And I just really threw myself as much as I could. I got a sponsor, and that's kind of funny too, because I didn't know what you were supposed to do. I just kept hearing you got to get sponsors. So I was asking everybody at my in-person meeting, like not even considering that maybe they weren't ready or weren't sponsors yet. I asked a guy who said, I don't think guys are supposed to. I'm like, oh, okay. And I just wanted a sponsor so badly. And I did land with somebody from A Vision for You, who to this day I have never met in person. We talk. It's been 6.5 years. And she got me through the steps. She was a wonderful, I always say, an angel. She just feels like such an angel to me. At one point, I wasn't even sure if she was a real person. I really did believe she was an angel. I've never seen her even on FaceTime or Zoom. We haven't seen each other. She feels like an angel to me. And you could see from the pictures what happened on the outside. I began losing the weight by working the steps, and it happened so suddenly that I literally, and to this day, I wonder. I went to the doctor recently and had a workup of a many tests, and I'm like, did they miss something? Because I keep thinking, how did that happen so fast? Like, surely there was going on. Are you giving me a heads up?
25 minutes gone, Donna.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. But I want to get to the other changes. So on the outside, I'm exactly half the size I was at my highest weight. But the other changes that came with recovery, I believe, are the true miracles. The greatest gift of anything that I will always be grateful for, no matter what, is that before my mother died, I healed that relationship with my mother. And that's why I'm sure I said I would sit with her on the bench, for those of you who heard me say that, because there's so much, that happened toward the end of her life. But we did. And she said, we're good. She made me feel very secure in the fact that we're good. And I also healed a relationship with my sister, who was second only to my mother on my fourth step. And her and I, this past weekend, we just took one of her grandchildren, I'm sorry, for her 13th birthday. We took her to the mall to shop, and my sister and I, and enjoyed that time with her. We go away together. We can go away together. That is a miracle. If I could only explain what our relationship was like, my God. Economic insecurity has pretty much disappeared. Most days, I don't worry about it at all. God continues to reveal more as he feels I'm ready. I've joined ACA, going deeper and deeper, peeling away the layers of the onion. And what I have found is that what I wanted all along my whole life was understanding, companionship, family, belonging, approval, safety, acceptance, love, friendship. And the way that I did this, the way that I went about achieving this, or the way I tried to get this, was they turned into character defects when I couldn't have them, or I couldn't have them on my terms, my time, the right amount, all those sorts of things. They turned into character defects. And the character defects that have caused the most harm in my life were rebelliousness, feeling like a victim, self-pity, self-reliance to the extreme, to the very, very extreme, and judgment. That's a new one that I'm adding to the list that I just found out about, and God has revealed and is helping me with currently. Ironically, I gave up on my need for connection in order to feel safe. And that's so ironic to me. Because I wanted those things and couldn't have it, I just said, forget it. And I gave up. And I said, I will be my own rock. And it exhibited itself as emotional, sexual, and social anorexia. That's how I lived my life. Literally starved myself in these areas and binged on food. That's how I lived. And I'm going to end with another quote from the Big Book about gratitude. It's found on page 327. I am so grateful that my higher power stepped in to show me the way to the truth. I pray every day that I never turn my back on it. I came to AA, in this case OA, in order to stop eating compulsively. what I received in return was my life. And I'm so grateful for that, because I have a life today, and I truly was not living. I was the walking dead. I feel like there's so much I didn't say, but I'm going to thank you all who walked shoulder to shoulder with me as I trudged this road of happy destiny. And I'm gratitude for all of you and all of the things that you bring to me that help me to live and live this life that is so different than what it used to be. So I thank you.
Oh, Donna, thanks a million. That was just wonderful. I'm just going to share a little quote for you, page 568 in the big book. Most emphatically, we wish to say that any alcoholic or compulsive overeater capable of honestly facing his problems in the light of our experience can recover, provided he does not close his mind to all spiritual concepts. He can only be defeated by an attitude of intolerance and belligerent denial. We find that no one need have difficulty with the spirituality of the program. Willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are the essentials of recovery, but these are indispensable. There is a principle, which is a bar against all information, which is proof against all arguments, and which cannot fail to keep somebody in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation.